In this short video, we will be talking about evaluating algebraic expressions. This is an important area because not only do you need to follow the rules for Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, but it is also then a great review for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing positive and negative numbers. So given that a is equal to 2, b is equal to 3, c is equal to negative 4, and d is equal to negative 5, let's evaluate the expression 5a plus 7b. In order to do that, all you're going to do is put in 2 for the a, which then means 5 times 2. Going to put in for the b a 3, which means 7 times 3. And then we're just going to go through and we're going to evaluate that. 5 times 2 gives me 10. 7 times 3 gives me 21. So my final answer for this is equal to 31. Let's say that you were given the next one, 3c, and I have the 3c squared. Once again, wherever I have the c, I'm going to put in a negative 4. So I have 3 times negative 4, and then I want to square that. 3 times negative 4 gives me a negative 12, so I have negative 12 squared. So my final answer for that is 144. Remember, if I just had 3c squared, I don't have the 3 and the c inside the set parentheses, this one works a little bit differently. It's going to be 3 times negative 4 squared. Now that negative 4 is inside the set parentheses because I do want it to be negative 4 squared because c is equal to negative 4. So negative 4 squared gives me 16 because it's a negative 4 times a negative 4, and 3 times 16 gives me an answer of 48. Here's one more to work on. If I have 7 times c subtract d. 7 times c subtract d, I'm going to put in the information I have. It is 7 times c is equal to a negative 4, subtract d is equal to a negative 5. Make sure that when you are doing something like that, I still need that subtraction sign. That subtraction sign I brought down, and the d is equal to a negative 5. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to figure out, first of all, what is it equal to inside the set parentheses. So I have 7 times that negative 4 subtract negative 5. I'm going to rewrite it as negative 4 plus 5 because that way I don't have to deal with subtraction. Negative 4 plus 5 gives me 1. So now I have 7 times 1. So the final answer for that is 7. Here's a few more examples, and I'm purposely picking these problems just so we can review some of the other things that we've talked about previously. I have b times, in parentheses, a plus d. And if I wanted to go through and solve that, b is equal to 3, my a is equal to 2, and my d is equal to a negative 5. So I can go through and solve that. First of all, I could go through and do what's inside the set parentheses. 2 plus a negative 5 gives me a negative 3. So I have 3 times a negative 3. So that final answer is a negative 9. But let me talk about that, doing that problem one other way as well. The other thing I could do with that problem if I wanted to is I could solve that by doing the distributive property. First of all, I am going to rewrite down what I have. I have 3 times 2 plus a negative 5. And if I want to do that using the distributive property, first of all, I could multiply 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 3 times a negative 5 is a negative 15. 6 plus a negative 15 still gives me negative 9 for an answer. It doesn't matter which way you go through and do the problem. Either one will give you the same answer. So here's another one. If I was given c over a subtract d over b. If I wanted to go through and solve that, once again, I'm just going to put in the information that I have. So c over a means negative 4 over 2, subtract d is equal to a -5. So I need to put in -5 over 3. And now I have -4/2 subtract a -5/3. Remember, in order to do that, you need to make sure that you have a common denominator for this. And what I am going to do is I'm going to go through and get a common denominator. I'm going to rewrite this, though, up and down. I have -4/2 subtract a -5/3. My common denominator in this case would be 6. So I'm going to multiply the very first one by 3 over 3. So I get -12/6. The bottom I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. So I get a -10/6. So now what I have is I have -12/6 subtract a -10/6. Let me rewrite it again going horizontally. -12/6 subtract a -10/6. I'm going to go through and I'm going to change that to an addition problem by adding the opposite. So I have -12/6 plus 10/6, which is equal to a -2/6. And then I need to put that into lowest terms. I could divide by 2 over 2. I would get -1/3 for my final answer. Here's 2 more examples to review some concepts that we have talked about. 3c subtract d divided by 4a subtract 8. I'm going to put in the information that I have here. 3c, so it's 3 times -4, subtract a -5, because it's subtract whatever d is, and d is equal to -5, all over 4 times 2, subtract 8. If I do the top, 3 times a -4 gives me a -12. I have -12. It's subtract a -5. I'm going to add the opposite to that. So I'm going to actually add 5. So on the top now, I have -12 plus 5. -12 plus 5 gives me a -7. On the bottom, I have 4 times 2, which is equal to 8. I have 8 subtract 8, which is equal to 0. Remember, anytime you have division by 0, if the value of the denominator is equal to 0, we say this is undefined. So you would need to give me an answer of undefined or not possible, that sort of thing. Do not say that that answer is 0. One then final example, A subtract B over B subtract A. If I put in the information, I'm going to have 2 subtract 3 over 3 subtract 2. And now if I just go through and solve that, 2 subtract 3 gives me a -1, 3 minus 2 gives me a 1, and -1 divided by 1 gives me a final answer of -1. Make sure you do not leave it written as a fraction. You can simplify that down just to a -1. Even though it may seem like there is not a lot of information in this section, it is a very important section to do well in, as it also reviews the concepts of order of operations and operations with integers. If there is anything I can do to help, please let me know.